for being here, everybody. I'm here this evening to share with you a story of a journey that we've been on over the past decade, working at the interface of marine conservation and social enterprise, and to also share with you our plans for expanding our work into a whole new region of the world in 2014. It's a story that began here on the coral reefs off the coast of southern Madagascar, where I started work as a biologist 12 years ago. These reefs were then still barely known to science, despite being amongst the largest on Earth. And like so much of our blue planet, these reefs face a very perilous future from an ever-growing range of threats, from climate change to overfishing. And these are not just threats to nature. These waters provide a lifeline for people, and in coastal Africa, like so much of the tropics, these are some of the poorest people on Earth. Globally, over 1 billion people depend on seafood as their primary source of protein, and over 80% of fish stocks are suffering or have collapsed. 97% of the world's fishers live in the developing world. It's small-scale fishers like these guys in Mozambique that have the greatest interest in making conservation work for them, and yet our movement so commonly alienates the very people that should be our strongest and most powerful ambassadors. So 10 years ago, as a grad student, I set out to turn this problem into an opportunity to try to make marine conservation make economic sense for some of the poorest people on Earth. I set up Blue Ventures, a charity whose mission is to rebuild tropical fisheries with the poorest coastal communities. How do we do this? We develop new models to inspire and incentivize grassroots leadership in marine conservation. We demonstrate to communities that conservation can work for them, that it doesn't need to be a tax, that it can result in increases in fish production, that it can also bring meaningful profits to these communities that are living on under $1 a day. And over the last decade, we've seen a step change in the way the communities that we're working with are viewing conservation, seeing that it can improve the quality of their lives rather than being a threat to their food security, because we're putting these fishing communities at the centre of conservation. Our work's had enormous impact. We've created the largest community-managed protected areas in the whole Indian Ocean, over 7,000 square kilometres of protected area. Models that we've been developing over the last decade have been scaled and replicated by governments, communities, and NGOs, hundreds of times along thousands of kilometres of coastline, impacting over 50,000 people in some of the poorest countries in this region of the Indian Ocean. And we're constantly innovating new models to inspire and incentivize engagement in conservation. From aquaculture, these women in Madagascar are farming sea cucumbers, which is apparently a very lucrative and very powerful aphrodisiac, I confess, for sale to Southeast Asia, to capturing carbon credits from the avoided deforestation of mangrove forests to help communities fund the preservation of these incredibly important marine ecosystems. This way of approaching conservation is really challenging the general paradigm of donor-driven conservation projects, showing that environmental management can be driven from existing and new markets that we're creating. In keeping with this philosophy, we ourselves are a social enterprise. We raise much of our own funding ourselves every year through an ecotourism expeditions model. Volunteers, paying volunteers from around the world, join us every year to learn about conservation at our field sites around the world. They learn to scuba dive, they learn about marine science, as well as helping us survey these coral reefs to help manage these protected areas. They also give assured year-round financial sustainability to our operations and enable us to leverage that funding through multilateral investment in our conservation and development work. This model's proven its own endurance, its scalability, its replicability. It's endured military coups, it's endured a financial crisis, it's scaled in the Pacific, Southeast Asia and the Caribbean, Belize, Fiji, Malaysia, all from its initial roots in Madagascar. Today we employ over 80 staff working on conservation projects globally, all of which these projects have been started by this underlying social enterprise model. We're committed to bringing on the local conservation heroes of the future, and we're honoured this evening to have Miali with us, one of our staff from Madagascar, who has worked for several years for us in Madagascar on policy issues and is now studying conservation leadership at Cambridge. In 2014, we're looking to expand our work into Myanmar, a country with enormous coastal population and a critical need to conserve its marine biodiversity. We're taking the same model there, and we're looking for £6,000 of support to help us build the partnerships that we need with the Burmese government to start the same incentive-driven conservation programs in Myanmar, responding to the critical need that this country has because it's been isolated for so long. We've a proven model for impact and success, as shown by this year-round growth and continuation of our work over the last decade, and we're looking for your support to invest and enable us to move into this incredibly important conservation area that's been overlooked for so long. I'd like to invite Miali to join me now for questions, if any of you would like to ask anything. I've finished in under 6 minutes, so I can carry on. Thank you.